Next game we're talking about is arguably the biggest game of the entire weekend. Texas at Texas A&M, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time on ABC. Playoff implications: the winner of this game goes to the SEC title game and could lock up a spot or lock up a first-round bye in the college football playoff. Texas A&M is out with a loss. Texas, I would say, is pretty safely in, even with a loss to Texas A&M right now. They are 10-1 on the season. It's hard to imagine, even though Texas hasn't played the toughest schedule this year, it's hard to imagine a 10-2 Texas with all the other chaos going on right now. They're going to be in, even if they lose to Texas A&M, I would imagine, on Saturday. But if Texas loses this game, they won't play in the SEC title game, and they won't be able to get a first-round bye in the college football playoff. And I mentioned before how the schedule for Texas has not been that difficult this year, Dalton. That could also mean Texas might not host a playoff game either, right? So that is a big thing to watch out for Texas in this game, because right now you can look at it and say their best win is over Florida, who's 6-5 on the season. They beat Vanderbilt, who's also 6-5 on the season.
Yeah.
Michigan, who's 6-5 on the season as well. It's just like not a lot there for Texas in terms of resume wise this year. For A&M, there's no room for error now. You need to beat Texas. They just lost to Auburn in quadruple overtime. They're 8-3 on the season. They're well behind all the other 3 lost teams in the SEC as well. Not only do I think Texas A&M needs to beat Texas to make the SEC title game, Dawn, I think they got to beat Georgia as well. We mentioned before how in previous weeks we're whoever makes the SEC title game is going to get in. Now I don't know. If A&M beats Texas, I still think they got to beat Georgia, because I don't know if a 9-4 SEC team will get into the college football playoff.
I don't think so, especially with a loss to Auburn. Hurts. That hurts big time, and I know Auburn's been playing better lately, but that's still a team that's 5-6 now.
I think non-SEC people would riot if a 4-loss team got into the college football playoff.
Yeah, most likely.
I do think, and I know we said before how whoever makes it to the title game is going to get in. I don't think that's the case for Texas A&M. I think they got to beat Texas and they got to beat Georgia in order to get into the college football playoff.
That's a task, isn't it?
So that's a tall
back-to-back weeks. Yeah.
Take it 1 week by a time though, and they got to win this game over Texas, obviously. And Dawn, you do have the A&M offense in this one. What should we be looking out for Marcel Reed and the Aggies at the ball?
I got to be honest. I'm a little worried that Texas A&M is running out of juice in their running game. That Le'Veon Moss season-ending injury that he suffered, what was it, on his first or second carry against South Carolina?
Brutal.
I'm worried about that, because these 2 losses that they've had recently to South Carolina and Auburn have been 2 of their 5 lowest rushing totals of the season. And look, Marcel Reed has played well in the second half last week, throwing the football right through, I believe, 3 touchdowns against Auburn. Got him back in the game from a 21-0 deficit, but Auburn's a different beast, especially in the secondary, than you're talking about Texas, who has the highest coverage grade in the country and a top 5 pass rush grade and the highest graded defense in the country. And the run defense is down in the 30s, which is still very good. But look, A&M wants to run the ball. They should run the ball against Texas, but I'm worried. Look, these last 2 losses, okay, I'm going to say they played New Mexico State in between. Cool. Against South Carolina and Auburn together. Got 3.5 yards per design carry here. That's not how A&M wants to win ball games. I know Marcel Reed can scramble and we can get yards that way, but they need to be able to line up and run the football. And I'm really worried about the fact that Le'Veon Moss is now out. And they're just not Amari Daniels and even Marcel Reed in the run game. If teams are disciplined on the read option, obviously, unlike LSU, that they're just not making anything extra happen. So I mentioned 3.5 yards per carry. Only 4 missed tackles forced on design runs in those 2 games. Only 2 explosive runs. 1.8 yards after contact per carry is, I think, barely inside or just outside the top 100. It's just not going to fly. They are running out of juice in this running game. They need Amari Daniels to find something in his heart and soul to have a huge game in this on the ground, because if you get in obvious passing situations against Texas, don't we have Jahdae Barron, Thorpe Award finalist?
Yes.
Is that right? Out at corner. You got Andrew Makuba. You still have a pass rush with Alfred Collins and those guys. And Colin Simmons up front, who's a true freshman, freak of absolute nature. This Texas defense is actually the best part of this team, and it has been all year. You don't want to get in passing situations. If A&M struggles in the designed run game like they have in their last 2 SEC games, and Texas defense, I'd say, is pretty comparable to South Carolina's, they're going to have a huge problem. Last week they got away with it, and early they almost didn't. That game looked like it was going to be a blowout, and Auburn's secondary and some kicking woes and different things got in their way. Texas isn't going to make those mistakes on defense or special teams or anything like that. A&M's got to find a way to run the ball.
Yeah, they absolutely do. So they got to find a way to run the ball, and Texas, if they don't block well, they have a lot of problems as well. So the Texas offensive line against the A&M defensive line is the most must-see matchup and the most must-see game of this weekend, Dawn. So Quinn Ewers has been up and down this year, right? I don't think he's been nearly as good as he was last year. There's some really high highs, like the Michigan game he was outstanding in. Some low lows. The Georgia game, he was objectively horrible in that game against Georgia. But he has had one of the best offensive lines in college football blocking for him. Right now, the Longhorns have a 94.2 pass blocking grade. That's the best in college football by over 4 points. 70 run blocking grade as well is 11th in the Power 4. They have an 86 offensive line grade right now, which is second to only Iowa among Power 4 offensive lines. So one of the best, if not the best offensive lines you can argue in college football so far. Certainly the best in terms of pass protection right now in college football. And Quinn Ewers has only a 43.9 passing grade under pressure, making the play of his offensive line absolutely critical to their offensive success as well. They should have their hands full against the Texas A&M Aggies right now, though, Dawn. They have 195 pressures this year, top 20 mark in the country. They're 13th in the country with a 91.5 team run defense grade. And, Dawn, I cannot wait to watch the tackles for Texas against the edge rushers for Texas A&M. Look at this, the PFF big board right now. According to Trevor Sycamore. Number 11 is Texas left tackle Calvin Banks Jr. Number 22 is Texas right tackle Cameron Williams. Number 10 overall, Texas A&M edge defender Nick Scorton. And number 26 overall, his running mate, the other edge defender, Shamar Stewart. The two tackles and the two edge defenders are all first-round prospects on our 2025 NFL draft big board right now. So that is going to be amazing tape to watch for not only this game and could ultimately decide this game, but also amazing tape to watch when we get to the NFL draft as well. 4 of those guys that have legitimate aspirations to be first-round picks in the NFL draft.
Yeah, that's a lot of talent.
Yeah,
for darn sure. In Texas, I really like the way the last couple weeks they've gotten Trey Wisner involved in the run game, but that A&M run defense especially is a problem. And if Quinn Ewers, look like you mentioned it, when they've been getting in obvious passing situations, it has been up and down, right? And he hasn't looked consistently great this year. And I think even their guys on the outside haven't looked consistently great. Let's be real. Their best receivers this year has been Gunnar Helm at tight end. He's been their most consistent guy. I think he had 2 touchdowns last week. Is that right? If I remember that right.
I think so, yeah.
He's been consistent, but I think it is dangerous too for Texas in this game. This is not a defense you want to mess around with, and I think Mike Elko is going to come in with a good game plan.
Absolutely. So, Dawn, ultimately in a game that will determine who plays Georgia in the SEC title game, and ultimately will decide whether or not Texas A&M keeps their season alive, who will win in this reignition of a big rivalry?
I do think both defenses are going to have some success in this game, but I like Texas just a little bit better. It's on the road. Again, you got teams playing tough road rivalry games this week. This is another one. I do think Kyle Field plays a little bit of a factor. We'll see what Quinn Ewers' composure looks like, and this game could come down to which quarterback makes more mistakes, but I'm going to ride with Texas defense as the best unit on the field. The Longhorns, and just at all 3 levels, got great players, okay? 27-21 Longhorns. I think they escape with a win. I think they out-defense the Aggies. I think it's going to be a fun game, and the danger in it for either quarterback is going to be turnovers, but I think Texas finds a way to ride their defense, and Ewers just makes not too many mistakes in the process of this, because I do think going against this defense and Mike Elko is really dangerous. But I've got Texas 27 and A&M 21.
It is worth mentioning that Quinn Ewers is a little hobbled. He suffered a mild ankle sprain in that game against Kentucky last week, so I think he will play. I think everything I've seen is like he will be playing in this game, but it is worth mentioning that, especially if it's a run for his life against that.
Right. Will he be able to move?
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
And he's had issues with his pocket presence all year, too.
And we saw Georgia send a good amount of blitz looks at this offensive line, especially off the right side. I would not be shocked at all if Elko mixes some things up here and sends some different looks at him.
Yeah, even saying that, I do have Texas winning this game as well, 31-20. I think the Texas A&M passing game is going to struggle to get anything going against what's been a suffocating pass defense for Texas, whether it be their coverage unit, which has been among the best in America, or their pass rushing unit, which has been among the best in America as well. And then I think on the other side of the ball, the Texas offensive line is elite. There's no way. I know the A&M defensive line is ferocious, but the Texas offensive line is just as good, if not slightly better, than the A&M defensive line as well. They'll hold up enough in what should be a heavyweight battle for Ewers to find his talented stable weapons. Another thing, Dolan, the A&M secondary has been up and down this year. Right? There's some really good games and some not so great games either. So that's an avenue too. If the Texas offensive line does hold up, there's an avenue there for Ewers to find his playmakers down the field as well. So Texas win this game. They kill A&M season is over after this. They'll make a bowl game, obviously, but they will not be making cut for a playoff. And Texas sets up a rematch with Georgia in the SEC championship game, which would be a hell of a game to watch next weekend, which of course we're going to preview. We're going to preview all 9 conference title games as well. Hey, thanks for watching another episode of the PFF College Football Show. Please make sure you guys subscribe to the channel.
Also, subscribe to PFF Plus at subscribe.pff.com for all of the same data and grades that we use in our show, plus fantasy tools, betting tools, and our mock draft simulator.